When I was planning for my thru hike, I had a huge fear of hitchhiking. I didn't want to do it, I didn't like the idea of it, and I even asked my friend Kyle if it was possible to thru hike without ever hitching a ride.
Taylor wants to ask, is it possible to hike without hitchhiking? Yes, if you are absolutely terrified of hitchhiking, it is possible.
Going into it, I knew I wanted to stay in towns a lot, and I really wanted to have my transportation figured out ahead of time so I never had to deal with hitchhiking. Sometimes it was successful, sometimes it wasn't as easy, and I just winged it, but it always worked out in the end. I even attempted hitchhiking once to get back to the trail after staying in Rangeley, Maine, and I absolutely hated it. We got to the road, and I just physically could not put my thumb up. For some reason, I just felt so uncomfortable. It was so weird. I didn't like it. When I was planning for my thru hike, I wish I had more information about how to safely get around to and from the trail after going into town. So in this video, I'm going to share all the methods I used to get around instead of hitchhiking. Now, I found the easiest way to go about this is to do your research and pick a convenient place to stay when heading into town. And a lot of these times it ended up being a hostel. Some hostels were located directly on the trail or within walking distance from the trail, and I thought that was always super convenient. Now, I wrote down a list of hostels that are directly on the trail in case you're planning a thru hike and are curious as to what ones these are. The ones I stayed at are Around the Bend in Georgia, the NOC in North Carolina, Standing Bear and Uncle Johnny's in Tennessee, Woods Hole and the Broken Fiddle in Virginia, Kind of Outdoorsy in Pennsylvania, and Rattle River in New Hampshire. Now, some of these hostels had resupply options there, or if they didn't, they always offered free shuttles into town to go to a grocery store and then go back to the hostel afterwards. And I also did stay at a handful of hostels that weren't located directly on the trail, but they always picked you up at the trailhead and drove you back there. These hostels that I stayed at included Above the Clouds in Georgia, Chica and Sunsets in North Carolina, the station at 19E in Tennessee, Wary Feet Hostel, Stanimals and Angels Rest, all in Virginia, and Shaw's Hiker Hostel in Maine. And again, some of these hostels had resupply options there and some didn't, but they did offer transportation if the resupply options weren't within walking distance. Sometimes I didn't stay in hostels, and sometimes I wanted to opt for a motel or a hotel for maybe more privacy, or it was just a better option in that town. And going to and from a hotel or a motel from the trailhead is a bit more difficult than a hostel because they don't usually offer free shuttles. Now, in this situation, I found the easiest way to go about this is to go in the Guthook app, which is an app that most thru hikers have for navigation and information on the trail, and find a list of shuttle drivers in the area. There were a couple instances where I did go into the comment section on this app and found a really good shuttle driver to help me out. A couple that come to mind is Roger, that helped us with rides. I got a shuttle back to trail from Roger, who I've been using as a shuttle driver for the last couple days. And also Ramble was a huge help getting us around the rural section of trail in Maine. We texted a shuttle driver that we saw contact information for on Guthook if he could come and pick us up and drive us to resupply and then drive us back to the trail when we're done. So that's the plan. Now, if we couldn't find a shuttle driver in the area, taxis were always an option. I would just go to Google and search taxi and the name of the town, and usually a couple different companies came up. I did this twice. The first time was after a 30-mile day in Marion, Virginia, and it was pretty late. There was no service at the trailhead, but there was a visitor center with a phone on the outside of the building and a piece of paper with the name and number of a taxi service. So we called them and it was magic. Just like, hey, I'm a thru hiker. I'm at the visitor center looking to get into Marion, and he goes, yeah, I'll be there in a couple minutes. Another taxi we used was actually in Rutland, Vermont. We stayed at the Yellow Deli Hiker Hostel, and that was the only hostel that didn't offer transportation back to the trail. I don't know if we were just there too early in the season or they weren't available, but we couldn't find a ride back to trail and called a taxi, and that ended up working just fine. We ended up getting a taxi ride, which wasn't bad. It was a little bad. He had some road rage. Now, because I put my whole journey out on social media, I did have people message me, whether email or on Instagram or on YouTube, saying that they were willing to help in a certain town if I needed it. And a couple of times I took people up on that offer. First one that comes to mind is Megan and Dan helped us out in the New Jersey, New York area. So that was really nice. I'm gonna get picked up by a trail angel, Megan. I've been DMing with her on Instagram. And also when a reservation at a hostel fell through in Virginia, Sarah came out to help us drive us to town, and that was also really nice. Because the hostel was full in Glasgow, I reached out to Sarah, who watches my videos and sent me an email a little while back saying that she would help if I was in this area. So I reached out and she's on her way to help me out. And sometimes when we got to town, we just meet people in town that would offer us a ride. There was one time we went to a motel kind of far away from the trail, and we had a ride to the motel, but we weren't sure how we were gonna get back to trail. And the manager of the motel mentioned that he could shuttle us, so we took him up on that offer. There was also a time in Connecticut where we stayed in a town about a mile away from the trailhead, and we were just gonna do the walk, but as we started doing that road walk, I ran into a guy that recognized me from my YouTube videos and got into a conversation and just asked him for a ride, and he agreed. So the motel was about a mile away from the trail, and I'm trying really hard to not hitchhike this whole through hike. I wanted to see if I could do it. So we started walking the 1 mile. I'm like, something will work out. And I hear a guy across the road going, "Are you Taylor from YouTube?" And I'm like, yes. And so we chatted a bit. I'm like, "Any chance you want to drive me a mile down the road to the trailhead?" And he agreed. So thank you, Jeff. I'm glad that all worked out. Now, another way I was able to get around was reaching out to old friends or family friends that I knew lived kind of in the area. And if people were following my journey online, whether it was my public YouTube channel or my private Facebook page, they were really willing and happy to help me if I was in need. One situation that comes to mind that I'm really grateful for was in Pennsylvania. I was kind of stuck, wasn't sure how I was going to get back to trail, and I asked my fiance's mom's boyfriend's daughter, who I knew lived in Pennsylvania, and she was 40 minutes away. So she hopped in her car at like 9 o'clock at night and came and drove us to where we needed to go. Thank you, Carrie. I also have a really good friend from high school that lives in Lincoln, New Hampshire. She helped us out for a couple days. Bye. See you later. I had some family friends that kept their boat next to my parents' boat at the marina, and they lived in Warren, New Hampshire, and were really willing to help. And also in Rangeley, Maine, my brother's wife's aunt lives there, and she drove us back. And that's who I called when I tried to hitchhike back, but got too scared. And I was also really blessed that my parents were able to visit as much as they did. I'm pretty sure they came at least 8 times while I was through hiking. So every time my parents came to visit me on trail, they would obviously drive me to where I needed to stay and drive me to get food and whatever I needed. So I'm really thankful for that. I know a lot of people who are planning a through hike don't have the amount of connections that I did, like family and friends helping out, because I was born and raised in New England. I know a lot of people around here. So there were a lot of hostels and amenities in the south, and then when I got to the north and there wasn't that many services available, that's when my family and friends started helping out more. But you never know if you're through hiking and there's someone that you haven't talked to in 10 years that you think lives near the trail. Try reaching out to them, because people are usually really happy to help. And also a helpful tip I have for getting around is if there's a gas station or a grocery store or anything within walking distance of the trail, take advantage of that. There was a lot of gas stations and amenities that were about like a half mile away from the trail, and I was always willing to do that walk to get food and snacks and whatever I needed to help me out for the next couple days. That's it. That's the gas station that we're really excited to go to. One place that really comes to mind that was a huge help was in Caratunk, Maine. This place is called the Sterling Inn. about less than a mile of walking, but for thru-hikers, they had free showers, free laundry, and a full resupply. And in Maine, those things aren't really easy to come by, so take advantage of those. Now, something that didn't work when I was on trail was Uber and Lyft. Going into it, I was like, oh, if we go to like a more populated town, I'll just use Uber and Lyft, because if there's a lot of people that live there, there's probably some Uber and Lyft drivers, but that never worked. I always went on the app, and every time I checked, there were no drivers available. So don't count on that if you're planning for a thru hike. Those are all the tips I have for now about getting around the AT without hitchhiking. I wish I had this information going into my thru hike, so maybe someone watching found this helpful. Before I go, I want to show you guys my shirt. This is a New Hampshire 4,000 footer shirt that I just started selling in my gift shop. If you're working on the 4,000 footers or you think it's a cool shirt and want to buy one, you can go to newhampshiregifts.com. And I also included a code for free shipping, just to thank you guys for supporting me and watching my videos. And that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions about this subject, feel free to ask them in the comment section and I will try to get back to you. But thanks for watching, have a good day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.